In an age where cameras never blink and every corner seems to be under constant watch, some moments were never meant to be seen by the public. CCTV footage is designed to deter crime and provide security, but every so often, it captures something far darker, sudden, violent, unavoidable. These recordings don't just document death, they freeze the final seconds of ordinary people who had no idea their lives were about to end. From quiet streets to crowded public spaces, these chilling clips reveal how quickly normalcy can turn into horror. Here are the 5 most disturbing deaths ever caught on CCTV.
A 2-year-old boy disappears from a shopping centre in Bootle, near Liverpool.
On the afternoon of February 12, 1993, 2-year-old James Bulger was at the New Strand shopping centre in Bootle, Liverpool, enjoying a routine trip with his mother. It should have been a normal day, just like any other, full of small joys and innocent moments. James, like any toddler, wandered with curiosity, his tiny footsteps echoing lightly across the tile floors. But the innocence of the day masked a horror that no one could have imagined. Nearby, 2 10-year-old boys, Robert Thompson and John Venables, were watching. They had spent the day shoplifting small items, sweets, batteries, and a can of blue Humbrol paint, but their plans were far darker than petty theft. For reasons that defy logic or morality, they had decided to abduct a child. They were just children themselves, yet capable of committing a violence so shocking it would haunt a nation. Caught casually on CCTV, the footage shows the boys moving with chilling calm as they selected their victim. James, unaware of the danger, allowed himself to be led away, hand in hand with the strangers who would soon upend his world. The scene is almost surreal. A tiny toddler walking with 2 children barely older than him, their faces calm, almost ordinary, yet hiding intentions that were anything but. The banality of the moment, the quiet shopping center, the background chatter, the passing shoppers only made the unfolding horror even more jarring. The boys didn't just take James, they tormented him. Within minutes, they reached the Leeds and Liverpool Canal, just a short distance from the shopping center. There, James was dropped onto his head, bleeding and terrified, while the boys cruelly joked about pushing him into the water. Witnesses later recalled seeing him crying desperately, a sound that went largely unheeded as the boys continued their relentless, calculated march across Liverpool. Over 2 miles they walked him, through busy streets, parks, and alleyways. Around 38 people reportedly saw the scene, yet almost no one intervened. When questioned later, Thompson and Venables gave casual explanations, claiming James was either a lost brother or a child they were escorting to the police. At one point, they even entered a pet shop with him, only to be ejected. Finally, they reached Walton, near the old railway line by Walton and Anfield Station. Here, the violence escalated to an unimaginable degree. The stolen blue paint was thrown into James's eye. He was kicked, stamped on, and struck with bricks and stones. Batteries were forced into his mouth, and possibly worse. Ultimately, a 10-kilogram railway fish plate was dropped onto his skull, causing multiple fractures. Pathologists later recorded more than 40 separate injuries, each a mark of the relentless cruelty inflicted upon him. In a final act of heartless calculation, the boys laid James across the railway tracks and weighted him down with rubble, intending for a passing train to finish the act. When his body was discovered 2 days later by boys searching for footballs, forensic reports confirmed the chilling truth. James had already died from his injuries before the train even struck him. The investigation that followed revealed the terrifying clarity of what had occurred. CCTV footage, initially blurry and almost innocuous, documented the abduction and subsequent journey in painstaking detail. Police traced the boys through the stolen paint. The bruises matched to their shoes, and dozens of eyewitness reports. Every frame told the story of a city's ordinary afternoon transformed into a nightmare. A trail of cruelty recorded in real time. A child vanishing under the unblinking gaze of a public space. When Thompson and Venables were finally arrested, they were anonymized as Child A and Child B, the youngest murderers in modern British history. Evidence overwhelmingly confirmed their guilt. Paint on their clothing, matched that found on James. Blood on their shoes was identified through DNA testing, and the pattern of brutality left no doubt that they had deliberately caused his death. The murder of James Bulger shocked the world not only for its sheer brutality, but for the way innocence was so completely stolen in a public place. The CCTV footage immortalized the horror, capturing a toddler's laughter transforming into terror. A city's casual afternoon becoming a stage for unimaginable violence and the unthinkable unfolding before a nation's eyes. Even decades later, the images remain seared into the collective memory, a haunting reminder of how fragile life can be and how dark human actions can reach, even through the smallest hands. It was just after 1:00 a.m. on August 4th, 2019, in Cusco, Peru. The city was quiet, the streets slick with night air, when surveillance cameras recorded Maybeth Espinosa, 34, and her partner Hector Vidal, 36, leaving a nightclub near the Bethlehem Bridge. The couple had recently settled in Cusco and were well known in the local tourism community. Experienced mountaineers, professional guides, people who made a living navigating danger with care and precision. That night, though, they were simply two people enjoying a rare break from work, walking arm in arm, laughing as they disappeared into the darkness. At first, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Minutes later, the same cameras captured them stopping at the center of the Bethlehem Bridge, a structure that rose nearly 50 feet above the road below, bordered by metal railings designed to prevent exactly what was about to happen. They leaned against the barrier, talking softly, kissing, completely absorbed in each other. Then Maybeth climbed up onto the railing, sitting on top of it. She wrapped her legs around Hector's waist, a playful, intimate gesture, carefree, affectionate, and tragically unsafe. Every second was recorded. Without warning, Maybeth lost her balance. As she slipped, her legs pulled Hector forward. Both of them grabbed desperately for the railing, their bodies twisting in panic, but there was nothing to hold on to. In a matter of seconds, they tipped over the edge together. Still clinging to each other, they fell nearly 50 feet, vanishing from the camera's frame and slamming into the road below. Screams echoed through the night. Emergency responders arrived quickly, but the damage was already done. Maybeth had died instantly. Hector was still alive when paramedics reached him, suffering from a fractured skull and severe internal injuries. He was rushed to the hospital, but he never recovered. He died shortly after arriving. Police reviewed the CCTV footage in full. There was no sign of violence, no argument, no third party involved. Toxicology reports found no drugs or alcohol. Authorities ruled it a tragic accident, one moment of lost balance, one irreversible mistake. The news shook Cusco. This wasn't a tourist unfamiliar with the city or a reckless thrill-seeker. Maybeth and Hector were locals, respected members of the outdoor and guiding community, people who understood risk better than most. Friends described them as inseparable, united by their love for the mountains and for each other. Both had family in northern Peru, and their bodies were later returned home for burial. Cusco had seen its share of accidents, but this one felt different. In the middle of the city, on a bridge everyone trusted, two lives ended not because of danger or malice, but because of a single, fleeting lapse in judgment. And thanks to the unblinking eye of a security camera, their final moments were preserved forever. It was the morning of August 6, 2024, in Sao Paulo, Brazil, a seemingly ordinary Tuesday. For 45-year-old Adriana Maria de Jesus, the day began as any other. She woke, got ready, and headed to her job at the Sturandre apartment building, a place she had known for years. Routine guided her every step. It was a morning so familiar it barely required thought. Downstairs, her husband, Gildo Alves dos Santos, manned his usual post as the building's concierge. He monitored the entrance and hallways through a bank of security cameras. Another quiet morning in a job he had done countless times. Nothing ever seemed out of the ordinary, until it was. Adriana stepped into the elevator on the 5th floor, calm and focused. On the 7th floor, two men joined her, one in his 20s, the other in his 60s. Casual nods passed between strangers and Adriana pressed the button to descend. From his desk, Gildo watched the elevator monitor as he always did. The lift moved upward slightly before beginning its descent. A minor glitch, nothing alarming. But then, in an instant that froze time, the elevator dropped. No warning, no creak of metal, no chance to brace for impact. On the screen, Gildo saw his wife's arms shoot upward as the floor beneath her disappeared. The two men grabbed handrails, eyes wide in panic. Then came the brutal, unstoppable plummet. The monitor shook violently as the elevator slammed into the bottom of the shaft, filling the camera's view with smoke and debris. Emergency crews arrived immediately. Adriana was pulled out first alive, but barely. Her injuries were catastrophic. The two men survived with serious injuries, but Adriana spent the following week fighting for her life in the hospital. On August 13th, 7 days after the accident, she succumbed to her injuries. For Gildo, the heartbreak was unimaginable. The couple had been childhood sweethearts, separated for nearly 30 years, only to reunite 6 years prior. They had married soon after, finally reclaiming the future they had long been denied. That morning, Gildo had watched it all unfold through a screen. I watched the monitor and everything looked normal. Then it came down, and I was horrified. My heart is broken, he later said. Investigators soon discovered a grim reality. The Stone Andre building, over 60 years old, had an outdated elevator with no modern safety systems, brakes long overdue for replacement, and maintenance warnings from Atlas Schindler reportedly ignored. The combination of neglect and age made the accident almost inevitable. When the CCTV footage was released 2 months later, the nation was stunned. The serene steps into the elevator, the calm descent, and then that violent drop, all captured in chilling detail. 3 lives were forever changed in seconds, and one man was left to watch his wife's final moments, powerless to stop it. The investigation continues, but the lesson is painfully clear. Decades of neglect and a single piece of outdated machinery can destroy a life in an instant.
Hours of the brutal murder of his math teacher, prosecutors say Philip Chisholm went to a movie, using his slain victim's credit card to buy the ticket.
It was October 22nd, 2013, in Danvers, Massachusetts, a day that began like any other for 24-year-old Colleen Ritzer. A devoted math teacher, she often stayed after class to help students who struggled with complex problems. Her energy and patience a hallmark of her personality. To her, teaching wasn't just a job, it was who she was. Among her students was Philip Chisholm, a quiet 14-year-old freshman who often went unnoticed in class. That afternoon, however, he became the center of a tragedy that would shock the community. Shortly before 3 p.m., Colleen stepped out to use the restroom. Surveillance footage would later show Chisholm following her, hood pulled up, moving silently and deliberately. At 3:06 p.m., a female student briefly entered the restroom and noticed a motionless lower body. She assumed someone was changing, unaware that she had just glimpsed a scene of horror. Moments later, Chisholm emerged, carrying Colleen's pants. He returned with a recycling bin, then methodically wheeled it out of the school, dragging it toward the nearby woods. His actions were disturbingly calm, almost clinical. By evening, the alarm spread. Colleen had not returned home. Chisholm had vanished. Police eventually found him past midnight on Route 1, carrying a blood-stained box cutter and Colleen's belongings. When questioned, he replied with chilling indifference. The girl? Hours later, Colleen's body was discovered in the woods, concealed under a layer of leaves. Nearby, a handwritten note in teenage scrawl read, "I hate you all." During the trial, prosecutors revealed the shocking simplicity of the trigger. Colleen had asked Chisholm about his recent move from Tennessee, a benign question that, for reasons still debated, seemed to ignite something dark within him. Minutes later, he had followed her into the restroom, strangled her, and inflicted further harm before dragging her body outside in the recycling bin. Afterwards, he calmly watched a movie and even shoplifted a knife. The evidence, CCTV footage, forensic findings, and Chisholm's own words left the courtroom in stunned silence. He was convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment with the possibility of parole after 40 years. While awaiting trial, he attacked a female youth services worker, earning an additional 17 to 20 years. Today, Philip Chisholm remains behind bars. but Colleen's family and community continue to honor her life. A scholarship bears her name. Friends wear pink, her favorite color, and memories of her warmth, her smile, and her passion for teaching live on. A reminder of the bright light extinguished far too soon. It was August 12, 2025, in Lancaster, California. A morning that started like any other but quickly turned into a nightmare. 33-year-old Shayla Cabrera, a devoted mother of 3, simply vanished. No messages, no calls, nothing. Her apartment was silent. Her phone went unanswered. And her boys, her 3 little boys, were nowhere to be found. Everyone who knew her felt that gut-deep fear. Something was terribly, horribly wrong. Shayla wasn't the kind of person who disappeared. She loved her children fiercely. She kept routines. She always told someone where she was going. But on that morning, everything was gone. Then the footage surfaced. A Ring security camera showed her husband, 36-year-old Josimar Cabrera, dragging a large, awkward bundle wrapped tightly in fabric out of the apartment 2 full days before anyone even realized Shayla was missing. He struggled under its weight, silent, methodical. Just before dawn, investigators would later watch the video again and again. One frame showed Shayla walking into the apartment with the Josimar. The next, he was hauling that heavy, covered object away. Shayla never came out. Fear rippled through the community. Deputies and search teams scoured the vast, unforgiving Angeles National Forest. Canine units, mountain rescue squads. Everyone combed the wilderness where even the most experienced hikers get lost. Finally, on the morning of August 16th, the search ended. Down a steep embankment, wrapped in green fabric, just like in the video, they found her. Shayla and Josimar had moved from Peru in 2023, hoping for a better life. But behind closed doors, her family revealed she had suffered. She confided that Josimar mistreated her and even harmed their 3-year-old son. Days before her disappearance, she had told relatives she was planning to leave him, to take her children back to Peru. Neighbors confirmed the same. She had talked about filing a report, about divorce, about escaping for good. On August 10th, screams had echoed from the apartment, neighbors recalled. Hours later, the Ring camera recorded Josimar dragging that bundle away. By the time authorities pieced together the events, he was gone, and he had flown to Peru with all 3 children. He was briefly detained but released because no warrant had been issued. Afterward, he disappeared again. His story shifted constantly. At one point, he claimed immigration had taken Shayla, though her appointment wasn't for another month. Then, he said she had left him for someone else. Later, he suggested an accident had occurred but never gave details. Every lie only revealed the truth more clearly. Investigators found blood near the condo, matched it with the video, the screams, and the recovered body in the forest. In Peru, the children were located and placed under protection, reunited with their grandmother, the only stability left in their shattered lives. Back in California, prosecutors filed charges, murder, with an enhancement for using a knife. If returned and convicted, Josimar faces 26 years to life. The district attorney called the case horrific, vowing to bring justice for Shayla. And yet, the final chapter hangs on one question. Will Peru agree to send Josimar back to the United States so justice can finally be served?